Hello, hello, hello. Scott Possley with imperfectionwellness.com. And we're going to have an interesting conversation today. I want you to go to my website, imperfectionwellness.com, click on Possley's Paradigm, and download a free copy. I want to talk through that document. You don't have to, but it'll be helpful. You can also check out my book, More Than My Thoughts, which goes into greater detail about what we're going to be talking about today. But I'm going to use a scenario, kind of generic, but real. And how do I apply the paradigm? How do I apply these concepts to coming back to present moment? I work at a busy job, and once in a while things don't go well. And there are times where I hit a wall and I pause and I go back to my office and I beat myself up. What did I do wrong? And it's instantly turned inward. What did I do wrong? Now, I've talked before about overcompensators and undercompensators, and a friend of mine asked me once, what do you mean? And there's a lot going on in our psyche and our mind, our ego, that sense of self, that inner critic that tells us we're better than or we're less than. And all of it is perception and a lot of storytelling. And so coming back to that, once we realize we are identified with our thoughts, that's where we pause. I'm in story. I'm in my head. I'm not in present moment. And I don't care what you call that, but it's this interplay of reality and our perception of it. And then based on the stories of our past and worries about the future, we're not in present moment. We're in story. And so for overcompensators, their story probably tells them, I was right and everyone else is wrong. Everyone else sucks. Undercompensators, my experience, my story, I'm not worthy. I did something wrong. And then I tie that to trauma or unresolved emotional experiences. And it's like, if I can't prove my worth, then I'm not lovable. I don't have inherent worth. I'm undercompensating. And that's why I say there's an interplay, because the deeper I go into wellness, the deeper the more I realize there's so much at play. I look at Instagram feeds, I go to webinars, I read, I study, and I think there's so many great things out there. And I think they're telling partial stories. And so what I'm trying to do here is bring it together. And I shouldn't say they're telling partial stories. They're giving a lot of great information. And what I'm realizing is I have to hit it from every angle. And if you don't understand the word trauma, I'm going to give you the simplest definition I can. All that it is an unresolved emotional experience. Think of it like that. The research says if we don't close the loop on something, our body will store it, whether we repress it or suppress it, whether it's conscious, whether it's unconscious, whether we knowingly push it down or we just push it down to get through. But until we close that loop of processing, it's stored in us. All of this comes into play when I have a bad day at work. Because if my worth is tied to outcome, there's the issue. Bring your awareness to, what do we tie our worth to, our value? We are inherently worth it. We have inherent worth. Period. End of sentence. Done. If you learn nothing else from this, know that. I am enough. The paradigm affirmation, I am beautiful, I am strong, I am worth it, I am enough. Done. What is my purpose? To be, period. Just in being, we're fulfilling a purpose of this beautiful experiment called human life. And I go back to that word interplay. Our psyche, our mind, our ego, our thoughts, our energy, our spirit, whatever we want to call it. And when we identify heavily with our thoughts, our feelings, and emotions, we move out of present moment. We time travel. We time travel to the past with regrets. We time travel to the future with worries and overwhelm. And going back to what I started with, that instance at work, if I can't deliver this project and it's not perfect, my overcompensation behavior was perfection. If I do it perfectly well, if I help everyone else succeed, if I worry about everyone else's issues and I fix them, then I'm worth it, then I have value. But if no one tells us this, we continue along thinking my value is outside of me. My value is based on outcome. And what I want to tell you is through the wellness journey, we start looking at process. What did I do today? I got up. A win. I got ready for work. A win. I went to work. A win. My project didn't go as planned. A win. Because it's process-based. I did the project. It just didn't work out the way that I thought. But my worth and value aren't tied to that outcome. Now, we live in a society that looks at outcome. And when we go to work, almost all of our jobs are tied to outcomes. And I'm lucky enough to have a supervisor that when I talk with him, I can look and say, and I literally said it today. We had our one-to-one. And I said, look at process. Look what we did. That's a win. And I said, let's move away from outcome. And he had my back. I'm blessed in that. And I still had a tough day. So let's continue talking through the paradigm. I talk a lot about ego. I think that's evolving the deeper I dive into wellness and realizing it's ego, it's psyche, it's repressed and suppressed trauma, unresolved emotional energy, all at play, telling us a story. And my story was, I'm not good enough because I can't make this work. And I gotta continue trying until it's right, because then I bring my value to the table. And it may be different for you. This is just one example. But what comes into play is that voice of that younger version of me. I call my egoic self Taz Scotty for Tasmanian Devil, that little cartoon character on Bugs Bunny Looney Tunes that was spiraling and spinning and all over the place. And that ego, that sense of self, is constantly scanning, working with our nervous system. And I do have a video on the nervous system that I suggest you watch, but aligning with our nervous system, scanning the environment, keeping us in this heightened state, this fight or flight state, fight, flight, freeze, fawn. This overwhelm, chemicals coursing through our bodies that were meant to be short-lived, that we live with day in and day out. And we're not coming back to our parasympathetic rest, digest, heal, restore. And I'll keep repeating this over and over because you can't hear it enough. I hope you continue watching these videos because the intentional repetition is to support you to hear it in different ways. And in this instance, I come back to that and I say, what story am I in? And I said that to my boss today. I said, the story I'm telling myself is outcome-based. What if the outcome would have went better? Would I then have value? No, my value is inherent. And we're not taught this. We're not taught that we are beautiful just because we are. And then we start identifying with the story. The story that says, I can't. The story that says, I have social anxiety. And that's why I say, what if we switched the narrative and said, I feel anxious in certain social situations? Change the narrative. It's so huge because then you don't identify with it. That's the shift. And so then my value can start coming into alignment. But when I'm identified with this egoic thought, with these unresolved issues, and I don't have any wellness practice to lean on, I'm at the mercy of all that interplay that I talked about. And it's a wild ride, let me tell you. And as someone who's been centering and focusing daily, I'm still challenged because I live in a world that is not aligned. But we start with ourselves. We have to start somewhere, and that's starting with ourselves. So I start with myself for me so I can be better for others. I become the lighthouse that can weather the storm. Because happiness is not the goal. Contentment and fulfillment from within, knowing our inherent worth and value. Because happiness is an emotion that's going to come and go. We're going to feel angry sometimes. We're going to feel joy, sadness, grief. We're going to feel all the emotions. And that's wonderful. But when we have that contentment from within, we know we can make it through. And we stop storytelling. And my boss was sharing something with me, and I said, pause, you're in story. And he looked at me, he's like, what are you saying? I said, you're making an assumption. And he's like, oh, you're right. And I said, it's easy when you're outside of the storm to look in and say, hey, you're in story. One of my besties, Allison, calls me out. She's like, you're in story. I'm like, oh my gosh, I am. I stumble and I fall and I get back up. And I share that from a humble place of I am learning and growing. This video made a year from now is going to look different because I will have grown and changed. And so I share that. That when we get identified with these stories, we're at the mercy of them. And so how do we start coming back? That's why I want you to go print out Possley's Paradigm. That's why I offer it as a free resource. That's why I wrote a book about it. More Than My Thoughts, which is also on my website. And it's not a shameless plug. It's my best try at creating a wellness roadmap. And when you look at those 10 universal truths, I didn't create the universal truths, I just put them in a framework. When you look at those 10 universal truths, you can start anywhere, but I always start with awareness. Awareness of this discussion that we're having, that I am more than what my thoughts say about me and the world around me, that I have ego or psyche or unresolved issues, and that they're at play in my life, and sometimes I get identified with them, and I believe what they're saying. I open my book with a quote: the greatest atrocity to affect humankind is that we believe what our thoughts say about us and the world around us. Us humans believing our thoughts has led to some of the worst atrocities in the history of the world because we're so stuck identified with that egoic psyche, unresolved issues. We're not taught it. And I might not see a worldwide change in my lifetime, but it doesn't mean I don't start somewhere. So it starts with awareness. And we can look at attachment. And attachment is many different things. But when I look to egoic attachment, I can say, well, I'm worthy or I'm worth it because of my title at work, because of my salary, because of where I live. And what I started disconnecting with was, that doesn't matter. Yes, I can appreciate it. Yes, I'm grateful for it. But my identity is not identified or associated with, attached to these fleeting externals being the title, the salary, the car I drive, the house I live in. Those come and go. My worth is inherent. And so we become aware, yet again, of these attachments. And I'm not talking about human attachment like to a mother and their baby. I'm talking about attachments of how do I define myself? By the external shiny wrapping paper or by what's inside? And as I continue going through the paradigm, I come to another term, acceptance, sitting in acceptance that I am the sum total of my choices. And so talking with my supervisor in this moment, realizing what's going on, I move into an empowered state. Instead of feeling victimized or like a martyr, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go back to the drawing board. I'm going to look at this differently. because I'm sitting in acceptance that there's no right or wrong. What happened, happened. And that can be a challenge. Additionally, we can go into the next concept. And again, I talk about these in order, but remember, follow them however you want. And I look at it as being the observer. How do I separate from that version of me that has unresolved issues or feels less than, whether it's Taz Scotty, whether it's whatever it may be? How do I become the observer and look up here from a vantage point, creating a little bit of space? Because when I can be the observer, I realize I'm not of it. That swirling chaos, I can take a step back. That's where I take the breath. That breath of mindfulness. I talk about breath work and meditation in other videos. That intention with next right action, which is a concept coming up. But when I start doing that, I realize I can separate from identification as one with my thoughts, feelings, and emotions, with that ego that's judging, rating, and comparing. The world is coming at me chaotically. And if I identify with it, I'm bound to fail, because it's telling me I'm less than. It's telling me I don't look like the movie poster or the model, or I don't have the right car or the newest phone. But when I become the observer and I create a little bit of space, picture it as, leaves going by in a stream, clouds going by, watching it as a movie. Create a little bit of distance, because that's what we can start doing. And when we're the observer, we can say, you know what, I'm going to surrender to something greater than me, because I can't control all these variables. I can't control the chaos going on in the world right now. And believe me, the world's always been in chaos. Modern history, there have been wars, starvations, horrible things happening. And that goes back to that original quote. When we identify as one with our thoughts, and we believe the ego is fear-based. The ego comes from a place of not enough, of lack, of scarcity. And that's what's going on in the world right now. That I need to have control and power over this group of people. And if you really look to the root cause, that's what it's about. Look to history. Fear-based people thinking they're right, taking over, conquering. Whether it's the Crusades, whether it's what's going on in World War II, what's going on now. It is fear-based. I have to surrender, saying a lot of this is out of my control and I don't like that. Because then what can I do? We'll get to that in a moment. That's that next right action. I make a difference and a change with me. There's plenty to go around. And in that surrender, I'm surrendering control. I can't control much. When I take that deep breath, because that's so uncomfortable. Which takes me to the next concept, lean in and let go. What can I lean into? I lean into the discomfort and I breathe through it. Now, going back to the case of my job and work, is it true that I don't have value and worth because this project didn't turn out, because the outcome wasn't what I wanted? Where did that come from? Something in childhood. It's all childhood. And I'm not one to pass blame. We'll get to forgiveness in a second. Forgiveness doesn't mean it was okay, but something happened in childhood that affected all of us. That's life. That's where our pattern behavior highway, our neural pathways, our behaviors, that's where me people pleasing and being perfect, because if I'm perfect, they'll like me, because I didn't have inherent worth. And so when we lean in and be like, oh, there's something ugly coming up, and I've talked with people who'd rather sit in chaos, because at least in chaos they know what's going to happen, or they know what they're going to feel. Because sitting in silence, turning devices off, not using alcohol, sex, drugs, shopping, other dopamine-heavy behaviors, not using those to numb, I'm not judging. I'm not critiquing. I numbed heavily for years with alcohol. It was my go-to numbing agent. And cutting that from my life and going back to feeling, I got to tell you, a couple of years not drinking, there are times where I'm like, wow, I want to go back to that because at least I could numb it for just a little bit. And I watch people around me having fun, having those drinks, sometimes taking it too much, partaking in drugs, whatever they're doing, shopping for comfort. I sometimes want to go back to not being aware anymore because it was easier. But I also felt overwhelmed and lost. So my journey is this: sobriety, being in the moment, trying to sit with the discomfort, leaning in and breathing through it. And we do wellness when things are going well, because when it's hitting the fan, today in my boss's office, when it was hitting the fan, and it wasn't hitting the fan, but I had my foundation. I wasn't starting there. It was mid-journey. That's why we do it. So moving on from leaning in and letting go, now the paradigm concepts don't apply to every situation. So forgiveness is one of the concepts. And there was really nothing with forgiveness here. Maybe forgiving myself, radical acceptance, radical self-compassion. But forgiveness might not have applied here, but let's talk about it for a moment. Forgiving doesn't mean what happened was okay. I forgive so I don't have to carry the emotional burden. And there are people who've said to me, I could never forgive this. That's okay. But if it's only hurting you, is there a way you can let go of that energy? Lean in and let go, perhaps. But for me, there have been times in my life where I've carried something years later. And I'm like, wow. And my sister turned to me and said, that's only hurting you now. That big sigh of relief, letting go of that energy. It didn't make what happened right. It did not negate the wrong, but I no longer needed to carry it as a badge of honor. And as we move on from forgiveness, we go into affirmations and gratitude. Again, may or may not apply, and in this situation with my boss today, I'm grateful that I had the experience to talk with him so openly. And what are those affirmations? I'm beautiful, I'm strong, I'm worth it, I'm enough. Let's go back to I'm worth it. That outcome was not my worth. Technically, the process wasn't my worth, because I'm worth it inherently. I matter because I am. Say that. Say it out loud right now. And some of you might have a hard time saying it, because I know few years ago, I don't know if I could have said it. I matter, comma, because I am. That's a complete statement. Forget all the qualifiers. Forget all the judgments, ratings, and comparisons. You want to sit with discomfort? Sit with that. Who has told you that you matter because you are? Oh, here come, little emotion there. It was assumed by my family. I knew they loved me conditionally. I didn't know if they loved me unconditionally, because I was closeted for 20 years, begging God every night to make me normal, whatever that meant. And being born gay in a rural conservative Catholic family, I didn't know. I thought there were conditions. And I didn't know that I had worth. I didn't know that I mattered because I was told I was born wrong. And I'm not alone in that. I'm not a martyr for that. I'm not special because of that. I'm just saying, my journey, no one told me I mattered just because I am. No one told me I had worth just because I am. And so I'm telling you, you are enough exactly as you are. And I'm pausing for a second because I want you to sit. And you might be sitting in discomfort. And you might not believe that. You might think I'm full of it. I'm not. There's no way you were the one who was born wrong. When you look at the billions of people on earth, you're not the one who was born without worth, who was born without value. We just live in a society that doesn't always tell us. Because the society at large is judging, rating, and comparing of what you look like, what you sound like, the texture of your hair, the color of your skin, your socioeconomic status, the words you use when you talk. Do you have an accent? What region are you from? What's your gender identity? What's your sexual orientation? All these qualifiers that if you don't fit a mold, you don't have value and worth. And now more than ever, that is on the radar of scared people who feel like they're the majority, saying, if you're not like us, we're coming to get you. And there are signs showing, based on the current state of affairs in America as we speak, the fear-based ego is running rampant through our political system, turning people against each other instead of bringing people together. That is real. And I'm here to say, despite that, you have value because you are. Those are our affirmations and gratitude. And knowing this paradigm, one of the most pivotal things is intention and next right action. It's the action pillar. Do I sit and mull and ruminate and think about outcome not succeeding? It's going to ruminate in my head because I didn't deliver. I didn't accomplish what I thought I would. And if I sit there and focus on outcome, which my brain has a habit of doing, these ruminating thoughts that go over and over and over. Depending on what literature you look at, we have 6,000 to 10,000 thoughts a day. Some literature says 60,000 to 80,000 thoughts a day. Some says 100,000 thoughts a day. There's also new research out saying 90% of our thoughts repeat themselves. So the thoughts I had today are the ones I probably had yesterday. And believe me, there are times where I wake up and look in the mirror and I don't see what you might be seeing. I start picking things apart, and it's not me, it's that psyche, it's those unresolved issues, it's that ego. Scanning, judging, rating, and comparing, because if it puts me down and it keeps me undercompensating, that fear-based ego keeps me safe. And again, the opposite is overcompensating. There's a lot of overcompensators out there in positions of power right now that are trying to make others believe you're less than based on whether or not you speak English as a first language, based on the color of your skin, your gender identity. No human is born illegal. I hate that word. Illegal aliens, illegal immigrants. No one's illegal. They might be undocumented, but we are all born legal. There is more that unites us than divides us. And when we come into action step, when we set that intention of, we might have some differences, but I'm going to pause for a minute and sit in the discomfort. And instead of breaking America down into two colors, I'm going to say, forget the colors. What about the humans? What is my fear-based ego telling me right now? And is it true? It's not. It's a story. And that's hard to sit with, everybody, because we're allowing a lot to happen right now based on stories. Opinions are being quoted and touted as true. Misrepresentations and falsities are being told as facts. And in that state of overwhelm, overconnected yet disconnected with devices, our brains can't handle all this. We're not wired for this, everybody. anyone who's over 20 watching this, think of what it was like before the cell phone era. Got my first cell phone in 2000. So in less than 25 years, how my world has changed by having a device that connects me to the entire world 24/7, and I could have it beeping every 3 minutes with a new headline and a new horror story. And if that's all that I see, that becomes my reality. And so I come back to setting an intention and next right action. And for me, every morning starts off with meditation, mindfulness, breathing, setting that intention. And when I don't know what to do, when I feel overwhelmed, I create what I call the lifesaver list. This is a part of the book, More Than My Thoughts, talking about the lifesaver list. What are some things I can write down that if I'm having a bad moment, if I'm stuck on the couch spiraling, and I can't think of an intention or a next right action? The easiest thing to do is a quick breathing exercise. Just as you're listening to this, pay attention to your breath. Don't do anything differently. Pay subtle attention to the fact that you're taking an inhale or an exhale right now. You can do that while you're listening to me. It's called conscious breathing or mindful breathing. Just paying attention to your breath will automatically bring you into a more parasympathetic resting state. If you want to do more, watch some of my breathing videos, watch some of my meditation videos. But let's say breathing doesn't work for you, because I got to tell you, when I first learned all this, breathing, whatever, it didn't help me. I was too overstimulated. My next favorite thing, jumping jacks. 25 of them. Oh, I can't do 25 jumping jacks. Okay, do 5. Or just jump up and down. If you do 25 jumping jacks, counting to 25 as you're doing a jumping jack takes you out of an identification with ruminating thoughts and brings you back to present moment, just for a second. Plop your face, if it's safe to do so, in a bucket of ice water. Or put your hand in a bucket of ice water. Jolt your system, come back to present moment. I talk a lot about left nostril breathing. Mindfulness, life at half speed. Do something at half speed. Text somebody at half speed. Think of every word as you type it. Because when we bring intention, when we do something at half speed, we're thinking about it. We're not on autopilot. That's what next right action is. That's the intention. My intention is I want to stop identifying. I want to break a cycle. And I got to tell you, it's not always easy. Start now when things are going well. Make your life preserver list. I have Post-its all over the place. I have them at work. I have my apartment. If you walk into my bathroom right now, you're going to see on my mirror a little Post-it. WWWT. What went well today? I had to think. I think there's 3 W's. WWWT. Because I'm in a weird place right now, and I want to remind myself what went well today. And when I say what went well today, it doesn't negate something that didn't go well, but it helps me close the loop. I also think it was Allie who said she heard something, close the loop on a positive. So I try to open my day and end my day with what went well today. So that's what I say at night. And in the morning when I wake up, what went well yesterday? The bookends of my day. And the reason I have it on my bathroom mirror, because I guarantee that I'm in there twice a day brushing my teeth. Always in the morning, always at night. Those are my bookends. If you do nothing else today, do that. This video series, Imperfection Wellness, Wellness for the Perfectly Imperfect, is for all of us. It's a passion project because I get overwhelmed sometimes and frozen and not sure what to do. We're connected in such a way, yet disconnected. And so I hope this video and the video series helps you. Please like, please comment, please subscribe, please support this. I would love to continue doing this. My ultimate goal is that we do these live. So as I'm building this base of people, this community of people, I hope these resonate with you, because that's the goal. We're in this together. And there are going to be people who are going to come and go who aren't going to resonate. And I have people in my life who I'm not as close with anymore because my behavior changed. It doesn't make them right or wrong. It doesn't make me right or wrong. It means we resonate differently. That's hard. It's not a judgment. It's not a critique. It is what it is for now, and that might change. I'm not telling a story. I'm not writing it down. I'm not making it a fact. It's an observation. And I'm trying to be more fluid, trying to be honest in these videos, that it's not all roses and unicorns and glitter and ice cream sundaes. It's life. There is no such thing as perfection. It doesn't exist. The only thing perfect about humans is our imperfection. That's why I call it Imperfection Wellness. Visit the website today. I have a lot of free resources at the resources. And as always, wishing you the best on your wellness journey. Wishing you the best today, because that's all we have. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.